What is the difference between turtles and tortoises? Turtles and tortoises, one and the same? Or are they completely different animals? Those are the questions many people often ask, so we've decided to settle the matter once and for all. So grab a seat and settle in as we look at all there is to know about tortoises and turtles, including any differences between the two. Let's begin. Turtles. The word turtle is the umbrella term for all animals in the Testudines order of reptiles. These creatures are identifiable by the characteristic shells on their backs. There are over 300 species of turtle in the world, and 3 general types: land-based tortoises, sea-dwelling turtles, and freshwater terrapins. That's right, tortoises are technically turtles too. Turtles have 4 limbs and most have short tails. Limbs are either actual legs in the cases of terrestrial and semi-aquatic species, or flippers in the case of wholly aquatic species. Like many reptiles, turtles are cold-blooded. This means they rely on their immediate environment to warm up or cool off. This is why they tend to stick to warm tropical zones and away from the poles. All turtles fall under one of 2 suborders. The first and biggest suborder is Cryptodira. Turtles in this suborder are characterized by backward neck retraction. When threatened or afraid, Cryptodiran turtles pull their heads back straight into their shells and between their front legs until they feel safe enough to pop out again. Multiple turtle families and superfamilies fall under Cryptodira, including Testinoidae, pond turtles and land tortoises, Cheloneoidae, sea turtles, Trionychoidae, soft-shell turtles, Kinosternoidae, Central American river turtles and mud turtles, and Chelydridae, snapping turtles. The sheer number of species here means that Cryptodira is also the most widely distributed suborder, with populations all over the world and in most major oceans. The Cryptodirans branched off from the other major turtle suborder back in the early Jurassic, some 190 million years ago or so. They first appeared in what we now call Southeast Asia and South America. This new evolution was so successful, the Cryptodiran turtles were the overwhelming majority in fresh water by the end of the Jurassic, a takeover that took only 45 to 50 million years. They were so numerous that some even went on to diverge into land-based species. The second suborder is Pleurodira. This is where Cryptodira evolved from all those millennia ago. Animals in this group are known as side-necked turtles because of how they retract their necks and heads. Instead of withdrawing their noggins back vertically under their shells, Pleurodires tuck their necks and heads sideways and into a space in front of one of the front legs. Their shells have greater overhang than similarly sized Cryptodiran turtles to cover their necks and heads fully. This difference in defensive maneuvers is rooted in differences in the vertebra of Pleurodires and Cryptodiras, specifically the cervical vertebra. There are 3 Pleurodiri families. We have Chelidae, Austro-South American side-neck turtles, Podocnemonidae, American side-neck river turtles, and Pelomedusidae, African mud terrapins. These turtles were once distributed all over the world during the Cretaceous period, and there were even a few marine side-neck species. Today, wild Pleurodes are largely restricted to freshwater environments in the southern hemisphere. Now, before we go any further, it's important to say that biologists have yet to agree on which suborder the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles belong to. Leonardo and his brothers are often capable of both vertical and lateral neck movements, which makes classification hard. However, according to the original comics from the 80s, the boys are red-eared slider turtles, Trachomas scripta elegans, the most popular species for people who love pet turtles. The red-eared slider belongs to the Cryptodira suborder, meaning the TMT are originally vertical neck and head tuckers. All turtles, regardless of whether they are land or water-based, have lungs and need to breathe air. All species are oviparous, which means they lay eggs, and all eggs are laid on land. Sea turtles famously swim back to the beach of their birth to lay their eggs. Much like a man's or woman's house, a turtle's shell is its castle. Shells are a protective adaptation that keeps their relatively soft flesh out of harm's way. Unlike many other animals that use speed, stealth, or flight to keep out of trouble, turtles are pretty exposed and comically slow, especially on land. Land speeds range from 0.14 miles per hour to a breakneck 0.3 miles per hour. Having a shell to retreat into is therefore the only way turtles have survived a world teeming with land and aquatic predators for more than 230 million years. So what is a shell made of? Well, a turtle shell features two main parts, a lower shell and an upper shell called a carapace. The carapace is actually a bony extension of the vertebra and the ribs. The top layer of the carapace consists of keratin scales called scutes. Keratin is the material that makes up our hair and fingernails, as well as the hooves and horns of several other animals. The lower shell is called a plastron, and it is also a bony extension of the sternum, abdominal ribs, and shoulder girdle. The plastron is also covered in scutes. All in all, a turtle shell is a network of up to 60 bones working in tandem to keep its head and innards intact. Adults in most species have 54 scutes in all, 38 on the carapace and 16 on the plastron. Of course, several predatory animals can breach these tough defenses. Powerhouses like crocodiles, orcas, sharks, and jaguars have the bite force to break through turtle shells. Giant snakes like anacondas can swallow them whole and slowly digest them, shell and all. Certain eagles and vultures can drop the poor critters from great heights to break the shell. Humans, too, have a broad range of tools for cracking through, and we have done since time immemorial. Thankfully for turtles, though, most other predators do not have the power, skills, or know-how to bypass this natural armor. So in most cases, all a turtle has to do is just tuck its head and limbs into its shell and wait for its would-be devourers to grow frustrated and disinterested. As far as their own diet, turtles are classified as omnivores. Most land-based species mainly live on plants, which is probably for the best since they can hardly run anything down. Aquatic species lean more towards being carnivorous, with ambush predation being a common tactic. The alligator snapping turtle, Macrochelys temminckii, uses a particularly devious lure in its mouth to attract unsuspecting fish to their doom. Sea turtles eat seagrasses and seaweed, as well as invertebrates like jellyfish, worms, mollusks, and sea sponges. Turtles will also eat random things like eggshells, bones, and dung for specific nutritional needs. Generally speaking, diet is a pretty variable thing. Turtles may become more or less carnivorous or herbivorous with age. Factors like season, climate, sex, and availability of resources are also highly influential factors. Same species individuals in shared environments may even have drastically different food preferences, which hints at a varying personality. According to recent studies, personality differences may be just the tip of the turtle intelligence iceberg. We have discovered that species like Florida red-bellied cooters can learn new tasks and retain their training for up to 8 refresher-free months. They can even use landmarks to form mental maps and navigate their worlds. Sea turtles rely on their powerful memories to remember the magnetic signatures of their natal beaches as they voyage to give birth there themselves. When it comes to training turtles, group work is seemingly the most effective approach, which is quite surprising, given that they are mostly solitary in nature. Their capacity for sociability is also shown through their surprisingly broad range of vocalizations. Most turtle species either grunt, growl, rumble, howl, snort, chirp, squawk, or make any other animal sound you can think of. Australia's unorthodox oblong turtle can seemingly make all of these noises and then some. Tortoises. As we've already touched on, tortoises are a family of turtles. This family is called Testudinidae, and it falls under the Testudinidae order and Cryptodira suborder. That means all tortoises tuck their heads and necks vertically into their shells. Their shells are generally harder than most other types of turtles to protect from the elements and the broader range of predators on land. All species walk on legs, not flippers. There are about 49 species distributed in sub-Saharan Africa, Eurasia, Southeast Asia, the Americas, and a few Pacific islands. They range in size quite significantly. The smallest is Chersobius signatus, aka the speckled Cape tortoise, which grows to 3.9 inches in length and 5.8 ounces in weight. The biggest is the Galapagos giant tortoise, which has been documented at 6.1 feet long and can weigh north of 880 pounds. All tortoises are pretty much herbivorous 99% of the time. They feed on grasses, weeds, fruit, flowers, and other vegetation. A few species will occasionally feed on bugs or worms to supplement their protein intake. Larger tortoises have also been documented consuming small birds for this need. However, too much protein harms shell structure and overall health. Tortoises are among the most culturally significant animals to humans. They play big roles in religion, science, art, and even on our menus. For instance, did you know that the first animals to fly around the moon were a pair of Soviet-Russian tortoises called number 22 and number 37? Well, now you do. Tortoises also play a starring role in most of the world's versions of the tortoise and the hare folktale, a story often told to emphasize the patience and wisdom the tortoise personifies. They are also an increasingly popular choice of pet. The craze with pet tortoises began with the emergence of the aforementioned ninja turtles, who aren't actually tortoises at all. What is the difference between turtles and tortoises? With tortoises belonging to the order of turtles, there are far more similarities than differences. That said, the first difference is that all tortoises live on land. They dwell in a broad range of habitats, deserts to rainforests, but all of them are fully terrestrial. They will occasionally wade into the water to cool off, but they don't really do much actual swimming. Turtles, on the other hand, either live in the water full-time or are pretty much semi-aquatic. Sea turtles are pretty easy to distinguish from tortoises because of their flippers, but many legged land-dwelling turtles are often confused for tortoises. If you want to tell the difference between a land turtle and a true tortoise, you should look at their legs. Tortoises have more elephantine legs suited only for walking. Meanwhile, land turtles' front legs often have a flipper-like gait to them, while their hind legs are slightly webbed, which points to their more semi-aquatic nature. Diet is another area of potential difference. Tortoises are typically vegetarian, while turtles are more open to the idea of meat. Next time you find a shelled reptile you can't identify, try feeding him meat. Just mind your fingers in case you're dealing with a snapping turtle. Shells can also help you. Tortoises have more domed shells that make them more difficult to eat, while turtles have thinner and more streamlined shells that make swimming easier.